Every tear, every night I cried. Let me hear where I'm alive. No one ever stood for me before, but they're standing now, and here I soar.
Hello and welcome back to Behind the Bruises. I'm your host, Candy Morrow. I'm a domestic violence survivor, a registered nurse, and author. Today's episode is a little different. It's just me and you. If you've been following along, you already know why Behind the Bruises matters. But today I want to share why it matters to me. Because maybe you've whispered, I can't do this one more day. Then I hope my story reminds you you're not alone. Silence doesn't protect us. Truth does. I didn't grow up in safety. I didn't grow up with bedtime stories or soft hugs or the sound of laughter echoing through the walls. I grew up in a house full of fear. I never knew what version of my father or my mother would appear. I grew up learning emotions were dangerous and silence was survival. As a child, I endured years of emotional, physical, and mental abuse. I wet the bed until I was in my teens, not because I was lazy, but because my body was constantly in fear. I would sleepwalk, trying to escape whatever was haunting me in my sleep. I would crawl into the clothes dryer. I wasn't playing, I was looking for safety. From the outside, we looked like a regular family, but inside those walls was chaos, and a little girl constantly trying to survive. I had no self-worth and was told numerous times I was stupid. So I thought my only plan in life, the only one I was allowed to have, was marry and have children. That was the script I thought I had to follow. I decided getting married would be my escape, that I could finally build something of my own. But I repeated the same pattern I was raised in, only this time the bruises were deeper and the fear had a new name. I spent 13 years in a brutal marriage marked by fear, control, relentless violence. I was beaten often to the point of broken bones. I was emotionally destroyed, stripped of my identity, completely silenced, and I was even shot at with a sawed-off shotgun. Sometimes words like violence and abuse don't fully capture what really happens behind closed doors. They don't show the fear, the confusion, or the way your body learns to live on the edge. So I want to share a condensed glimpse of a night from my memoir, Not One More Day. It's not the whole story, but enough to help you understand what surviving looked like for me during those years and one of the incidents that took place the night I thought I was going to die. He said, I'm going to have just one drink. There's nothing wrong with that. I had learned not to argue, not to challenge him, not to say the wrong thing. So I bit my lip and stayed quiet. But one drink always became more. On the way to the motel, he suddenly pulled into a liquor store. When he came back, he was holding a bottle. My stomach dropped. I stared out the window, my heart already pounding, my body bracing for what I knew might be coming. The motel parking lot was almost empty when we arrived. A few scattered cars, flickering lights. Everything felt cold and exposed. The room was small, old. The furniture was worn down and chipped. The air was heavy, stale, like it hadn't been cleaned in a while. I felt trapped, the moment the doors shut behind us. I went into the bathroom to get ready for bed, hoping, praying he would drink himself unconscious. From the other side of the door, I could hear the bottle, the television blaring, his voice at first muttering, then growing louder, angry, sharp. My stomach twisted. What are you doing in there so long? He shouted. I'm just getting ready for bed, I said, barely louder than a whisper. Get out here, he snapped. We're supposed to be spending time together. I gripped the sink. Let him pass out, please. Then I heard his footsteps, heavy, fast, coming closer. I opened the door slowly. I'm here, I said softly. See, I'm right here. It didn't matter. He grabbed my hair and yanked me forward, My feet slipped from under me. My body slammed into the wall, then the floor. I remember the sound of my own breath leaving my chest. The first kick came before I could move, then another and another. I tried to crawl, tried to get away. My arms shook. My legs barely worked. The carpet scraped my skin as I dragged myself forward. Crawl, get between the beds, I told myself. If I can get between the beds, maybe he can't kick me as hard. My ribs burned. My back screamed. My lungs felt like they were folding in on themselves. He kept yelling, telling me I was worthless, ugly, stupid, telling me no one would ever love me. Then he said the words that froze my blood. I think I'm going to kill you tonight. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I believed him. I curled into myself and covered my head. Then something inside of me shifted. Play dead. If he thought I was dead, maybe he would stop. So I didn't move. I didn't cry. I barely breathed. I laid there while the pain exploded through my body. I listened to every sound, every movement, every breath. Then suddenly, nothing. Silence. Minutes passed. I opened my eyes. He was sprawled across the bed, unconscious. The bottle tipped over beside him. I was alive. I laid there shaking, afraid to move, afraid he would wake up. Eventually I pulled myself up, inch by inch, holding my side, fighting to stay conscious. In the bathroom mirror, I barely recognized myself. Bruises everywhere, dark, swollen, and angry. I wanted to call the police, but fear stopped me. The last time, he had told them I was crazy. He said he would take my children, so I stayed silent. Again. The next morning, he sat on the edge of the bed, holding his head. I'm sorry about last night, he said. I just drank too much. Then he looked at me and said, I don't see any bruises on your face. I lifted my shirt and showed him my ribs. You broke my ribs, I said. He barely looked. Then he said he would go to AA, get help, find a sponsor. And then he said, if you didn't make me mad, I wouldn't hit you. Those words from that night echoed in my mind for years. Not because I believed it, but because back then I didn't know what else to believe. I carried those words like they were my fault until one day I didn't. That moment didn't end the abuse, but it did plant a question deep inside me. A quiet, stubborn question that kept rising to the surface, even in the darkest times. What if this isn't all there is? Not long after, someone unexpected handed me a lifeline. For most of my life, I was told I was too stupid to go to college. I believed it. I carried it like a curse, until one day, in my late 20s, an angel crossed my path. She looked at me and simply said, Candy, why don't you go to college? That question broke something open in me. It was the first time someone had believed in my mind. She didn't ask what I had survived. She asked what I could become. So I enrolled and was accepted into the nursing program. I was terrified. I had ADHD, dyslexia, and 2 little boys to care for and keep alive. I was still dealing with being belittled and beaten by my abuser. But every day, I showed up. I studied through tears. I fought my own brain and all the lies I had been told. And I passed. I graduated. I became a registered nurse. Eventually, my abuser was arrested and imprisoned. But the terror didn't stop. Instead of taking accountability, he implicated me in his illegal activities to get a reduced sentence. And it worked. I was arrested. That moment marked the beginning of a long, frightening journey. One filled with courtrooms, criminal attorneys, fear for my children, and the looming threat of losing the one thing I had worked so hard to earn. The one thing that meant everything to me, my nursing license. Before I take you into this next part of my story, I want you to know This was one of the most terrifying days of my life. I wasn't facing my abuser this time. I was facing something that felt just as threatening. The possibility of losing everything I'd fought so hard to rebuild. My nursing license wasn't just a piece of paper. It was my freedom. It was my lifeline. And on this day, I had to sit in front of a panel of strangers and explain why I deserved to keep it. What you're about to hear isn't easy for me to relive, but I share it because there are so many women who've been punished not just by their abuser, but by the systems that were supposed to protect them. Here's what happened the day of my nursing board hearing. The day of my nursing board hearing finally came. I don't remember what I wore that day, but I can promise you it wasn't anything flashy. I didn't own anything flashy. The hearing was about 40 minutes away, but I left 90 minutes early. I needed time to pray, time to breathe. As I pulled open the door to the building, I said a quiet prayer under my breath. Please, God, help me. I can't lose my nursing license. In the lobby, I spotted Stuart, my attorney. He was already there, stiff as usual, but steady. His presence oddly gave me comfort. He leaned in slightly and said, "Now listen, when you walk into that room, tell them your side of the story, calm and confident. There's usually a panel of at least 8 board members. Look each one in the eye, and whatever you do, don't cry." I blinked at him. Wait, you want me to sit in front of the nursing board and tell them I was beaten, shot at, isolated, then arrested, and not cry? Yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you, he said. Crime could make you look weak. His words hit me like a cold slap, as if the strength could only come without tears, as if the mental anguish I had endured was somehow less real because I survived it. Then someone called my name. "Candace, they're ready. Go in there and tell them your side of the story." The courtroom-style door felt impossibly heavy, but I walked through it anyway, and what I saw took my breath from my body. I had expected a table, maybe a few people, but there were over 150 people in the room. Rows and rows of seats packed. In the front, long tables stretched across the stage where 8 board members sat, men and women, all professionals, all staring. The air felt thick. My stomach turned. Every step I took toward the front of that room felt like walking through cement. My legs were trembling. Don't fall. Don't cry. I sat down, hands damp, my heart pounding in my throat. One of the assistants reached over and pulled the microphone closer to my mouth. I could feel 150 pairs of eyes pressing down on me. "State your name, please." I tilted my head back and looked up at the panel. "My name is Candace." "Candace, as you can see," the chairperson said, "we have quite a few attendees here today. There are students from 2 different nursing schools present." I swallowed hard, mortified. Why did this have to happen to me? Another panelist male spoke up. "Let's proceed. We're here to determine if your license should be revoked, suspended, or otherwise disciplined based on the administrative complaint filed on January 24th. Candace, tell us your side of the story." I took a deep breath. "I was in an abusive marriage for 13 years, I began. During that time, I put myself through nursing school. After his arrest for selling drugs, my ex-husband implicated me in his crimes in order to get a reduced sentence." My voice cracked. I was shaking. And then another male board member cut in. "Why didn't you just leave the marriage?" Just like that. Why didn't you just leave? I wanted to scream. My teeth clenched so hard I thought I might break them. But I said nothing. Thankfully, a female panelist jumped in. "Let's not get into that," she said. "Candace, have you been working since your arrest?" "Yes, ma'am. 60 to 70 hours a week as a nurse." Any complaints from your employers? No. My evaluations have all been excellent. Are you still on probation with the state? Yes, but I've requested early release. Okay, I think we've heard enough, the chairperson said. You'll receive our decision by mail. Is there anything you'd like to add? I straightened up in my seat, my voice low, but this time steady. The one thing I do know is this. I'm a good nurse. I give my patients the best care, with dignity and respect. And I looked at each one of them. Most stared back, stone-faced. But one woman, all the way to the left, gave me a small, quiet smile. And in that moment, I felt just a flicker of hope. She believes me. I left the room still furious at that man who asked why I didn't leave. But later it hit me. Maybe I was placed in that room for a reason. Maybe someone needed to hear that story. Maybe a woman in that room was in her own abusive relationship, and hearing me speak was the first time she considered leaving or surviving. Because silence is how abuse hides. Approximately 30 years later, I made the decision to put my journey into a book. I wanted to write a detailed account of what really happened, not the softened version, not the version that makes people comfortable, but the truth. It took me 2.5 years to write Not One More Day. And let me tell you, it didn't come easily. It came with shaky hands and sleepless nights, pages blurred by tears I didn't know I still had left to cry. I relived horrific memories, battled nightmares, and reopened wounds I had spent years trying to close. There were moments when I wanted to give up writing, moments I questioned whether I could survive, telling the truth all over again. But every time I wanted to quit, I thought about someone else, someone still stuck, still scared, still unsure if they mattered. And that thought, that's what kept me writing. In January of this year, 2026, I was honored and humbled to be selected by the Georgia Writers Museum as a brand new Georgia author. My memoir is profiled in their winter issue of their magazine, Page Turner. This recognition means more than I can put into words, not because of fame, but because it reminds me what was once shame has now become strength. I didn't start this podcast to sell books. I came to tell the truth, because someone out there is where I used to be, lost, afraid, believing the lies. If you're that person, let me say this to you. You're not stupid. You're not alone. You're not broken. And you deserve a life that doesn't hurt. I lived in New York City for several years. By that time, I think I had read every self-help book I could get my hands on. I'd sat in therapy sessions, taking notes, done the work, or so I thought. But it wasn't until Molly, my basset hound, and I moved to the city that things really began to shift in me. We'd walk the city streets together, peeking into restaurant windows, watching families laugh and talk and enjoy one another. I'd push my rolling cart to the neighborhood, picking up ingredients for new recipes, then share with my coworkers. I'd stop in the prettiest bakeries just to try a new pastry. I'd pore through the local newspapers, looking for exhibits, festivals, and concerts. Molly and I lived there fully. That time marked a milestone in my healing because I discovered something powerful. Joy is part of healing. Curiosity is part of healing. Pleasure is part of healing. For so many years, I chased acceptance. I thought I had to earn love, as if it came with conditions or tests I could never pass. But healing doesn't come from chasing. It comes from facing. And somewhere between those long walks, the smell of the street vendors, the theater marquees, the quiet nights in my apartment, I stopped begging for permission to be free and started giving it to myself. When I first started writing my memoir, people would ask me, "What's it about?" And I'd answer, "It's about surviving domestic violence." Almost instantly, the energy in the room would change. The silence that followed wasn't cruel. It was uncomfortable. People just didn't know what to say. So I softened my response. It's about how I survived and how I rebuilt my life. That phrasing made them more at ease. I always found that fascinating, how I felt the need to protect others from the discomfort of my truth, even while I was still carrying the weight of it myself. Before I ever started writing, I'd say, I was in an abusive marriage for 13 years. And that was it. I never went into detail. I learned to shrink my pain into something easier for others to digest. So how do we begin to talk about something so heavy, so often hidden behind closed doors? It starts with creating safe spaces, spaces where survivors aren't met with judgment or skepticism, but with compassion and belief. We could start by listening without interrupting, asking instead of assuming, gently checking in when we sense something isn't right. It means shifting our language from, "Why didn't you leave?" to, "I'm here for you." It means speaking up, even if our voices shake, and modeling the courage we hope others will find. Because here's the truth. Silence protects abusers, not survivors. And the moment we open the door to honest, raw conversations, we let the light in. Healing begins where truth is finally allowed to exist. And then there's the shame. Oh, so much shame. Deep, heavy, and often unspoken. It's one of the cruelest parts of domestic violence. That somehow the person who was hurt the most ends up carrying the most blame. I carried that shame for years. I should have left sooner. I should have seen the signs. I should have been stronger. But here's the truth. Being abused is never your fault. It doesn't mean you are weak. It doesn't mean you were naive. It means you trusted, you hoped, and believed, and someone took advantage of that. The shame should never have belonged to me. And if you're carrying it now, I want you to hear me. It doesn't belong to you either. Together, we're proving that when people come together with open hearts and shared purpose, change is not only possible, it's inevitable. I've taken you through just a glimpse of a few dark parts of my past. I once believed I might not survive. But healing is real. Peace is possible. Today, my home is in Atlanta, and this is what my life looks like now. Because the girl who once crawled across the motel floor in fear now walks freely through her own home, safe, whole, and surrounded by love. It's not flashy, it's not perfect, but it's peaceful, it's soft, and it's mine. I still love to explore in my kitchen, trying new recipes, plating something beautiful, and opening my doors to the people I care about. There are moments when I stand back watching my friends laugh and talk around my table, enjoying a meal I made with my own two hands. And I feel this quiet wave of disbelief that there's no fear of the table being flipped, no shouting, no chaos, no bruises, just laughter and safety and love. That alone would have once felt impossible. Now, when I step into my bedroom, I light a lavender candle on the nightstand. The scent wraps around me like a warm hug. I run my hand along the wallpaper I chose myself. Soft blues, gentle grays, warm creams, which reminds me of the sky. I'm no longer scanning those walls for bullet holes. Instead, when I pull back my blanket and find a few cookie crumbs from a late-night snack, I smile. It's a little reminder that comfort is allowed here. And joy is allowed here too. Through years of therapy, deep healing, and the love of true friends, I've discovered something I once thought I'd never have. Peace. Not perfection, but peace, resilience, and moments of joy that I finally believe I deserve. When I wrote Not One More Day, one of the greatest realizations I had was this. Angels were sent to me exactly when I needed them. Some stayed, some appeared for just a few moments, a kind word, a question like, "Why don't you go to college?" Or even just a look that said, "I see you." Each one reminded me I was never as alone as I thought I was. If my story gives even one person a sliver of hope, if it helps someone believe they are worth more than pain, then every sleepless night, every tear, and every page I poured my heart into was worth it. No one should live in fear. Everyone deserves to feel peace, to feel love, to feel like they matter. And you do. You matter. Before I close, I want to say this. I can't tell you when it's time to leave. I'm not here to pretend I have all the answers. But if you're still in an abusive situation, if you're not ready to leave yet, and just need someone to talk to, please know there is help. Start a plan in your mind, not written down, nothing he can find. Reach out to the National Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. They won't judge you. They won't push you. They will support you, even if all you can do is whisper, "I'm not ready, but I want to talk." That's enough. That's a beginning. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Behind the Bruises. If you or someone you know has a story to share, or if you're a survivor, a professional or advocate who would like to be a guest on Behind the Bruises, please message me on Instagram or visit my website at CandiceMorrowAuthor.com. And remember to please leave a review, a like, a comment, and subscribe. I would love to hear your suggestions. I hope my story reminded you of this simple truth. Not tomorrow, not someday, but today you matter.
Now one more hour. Oh, no more taking away her power. Not one more day. Her new theme. She's living wide awake in a dream.